Hey team, how you guys doing? In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about how to draw a trend line. How to draw trend lines. It's really important that you get in the habit of establishing trend lines. It's going to improve your trading so much, and I want to talk to you about what a trend line is, how to draw a trend line, how to connect the dots, and also how to use it when you're trading and what it tells you, okay? So make sure you guys subscribe to our channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Make sure that you also join our public Telegram. I drop daily trade ideas in there, trade setups, analysis, examples of losing, winning trades, so much value that I think you guys will love. If you want to get in contact with us, that's in the description of this video as well. So I trade mostly on my mobile phone and I analyze on TradingView. Love TradingView. I'll do another tutorial on that, training on that, but let's go to my TradingView and I'm just going to break this down for you really, really quickly, okay? Very, very simple. So what is a trend line? So a trend line, I'm going to draw that for you in a second, but basically a trend line is basically just a technical analysis tool that we use as traders. It helps us to identify the direction of price, okay? So the direction that price is moving in or can expect to go. It acts as support for us when we are in an uptrend. It also acts as resistance when we're in a downtrend. Now, you can physically eye a trend line with your naked eye, or you can manually draw it with your tool. I'm going to show you how to do that by drawing it out, okay? So on TradingView, all you would do is you would go to over here on the left, this second icon here, you click on it and you click on trend line. Now let me just point something out really quickly. Before you do that, now I start on the higher time frame when I draw a trend line. Why? Because you want to get the overall picture of what price is doing. When you scroll down to the 5-minute or the 15-minute time frame, it's really noisy. It's what I mean by noisy. You see how choppy that is? I really have to fix it to bring it together, but it's very choppy. And it can be very deceptive, very deceiving on the 5-minute or lower time frames. So you always want to look on the higher time frame. Sometimes I even like to look at the day time frame just to get an overall feel for what price is doing. What overall trend am I in? And am I in a uptrend or am I in a downtrend? Because that's going to help you a lot with your entries and also your exits. Now, I analyze mostly on the 1 hour or 4 hour time frame, and then I also will enter. I do all of my entries on the 15-minute time frame because I scalp and I also intraday trade. But let's go ahead and we're actually going to draw a trend line, okay? And I want you guys to get in the habit of just going on a chart, and you know, in the evening when you have some downtime, just practice drawing these trend lines. It's going to help so much. So let's go ahead and grab our trend line. So we're going to click here on the left in TradingView, and if you click on trend line, how you draw a trend line is you want to find the lowest low near the bottom of the trend. So here's our low here, okay? So this is where you want to understand highs and lows in the market. You got to know when you have a low, when you have a high, a higher low. You want to know all those different things, lower lows, all those things. That's in IML Academy basics. You got to master the basics. So you click on your low point here. I like to say 1, 2, run it through, all right? Because in order to have a valid trend line, how do you know that you have a valid trend line? You must have a minimum of at least 2 points that respect your trend line. But if you have at least 3 points that respect your trend line, you have a major trend line, all right? So you want to include the wicks. You want to include the wicks, but most importantly, you want to include the area that price is respecting. That's where you want to draw your trend line. So you don't want to draw your trend line going through it like that or all over here. No, you want to follow the wicks and the area that price is respecting, which is right there. You see that? So if we drop that trend line right there, clearly price is respecting this trend line. And what I mean by that is that price is coming to this trend line and it's bouncing off of the trend line, bouncing off of the trend line, bouncing, okay? So you have 1 point here, 2 points here, so you have a valid trend line, and then you have multiple touches here, which makes it a major trend line. Usually by the 3rd touch, you'll have a strong shift in price, so you'll have a strong momentum in price where you'll see that where a lot of people are now taking advantage of that trend. And then after that, I start to, look for confluence to see if possibly I'll have a break in the trend line soon, or I look for other ideas. I like trend lines because it helps you use tight stop losses. You can use very tight stop losses with trend lines. For example, when the trend line breaks, that can be a signal for you to possibly exit the trade, and vice versa when you're in a downtrend. So now let's delete this. I showed you an upward movement, right? Now let's go and look at a downward movement really quickly. So let's delete this. Let's get rid of that trend line. And now let's scroll our chart and let's go look at a downward movement. And I'm going to show you an example of what happens when price breaks a downtrend. So let's see, we have an example right here. So let's go ahead and grab our tool. So we're going to grab our trend line and we're going to start at the high, click there, 1, 2, run it through. Okay, we're just going to connect the wicks that are respecting that trend line and there. So as you can see, price respected this trend line, which acted as a level of resistance for us. So you have 1 point here, 2 points here, 3 points, and your 4th point, you had a break in resistance. So it broke this trend line, all right? So what happened? Let me show you an example here. So I'm going to show you an example. Price broke this trend line. And what usually happens is when you have a break, you usually will have a retest, all right? So price will retest this area, this resistance area, which then became support, and then usually it will take off, all right? Not always, but usually that's what happens. So that is pretty much how you draw trend lines. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of, you know, where do you even start with drawing a trend line? Do you use wicks or do you use the body of the candle? That's a common question that people have. How do you use a trend line or trade it? I didn't go really deep into that, but what I'll show you an example really quickly. The reason why I do like trend lines is because you can actually use a very tight stop loss. So I'll just use an example of the trend line that I actually just marked up on this chart right here. And we'll look at an example of where would you drop your stop loss if you are trading off of a trend. Now, some people are just trend traders, but I like to use the trend line as a, part of confluence for my trades. So let's mark a trend line right here again. So if we mark this trend line here, 1, 2, run it through. Just gonna mark that there. All right. Then let's just say, for example, if price broke this trend line. So if price were to break here, and then I like to wait for the retest. I like to wait for price to retest. And then I like to enter once I have a retest, and I usually will get in on that 2nd or 3rd candle headed down when it's going short. So let's say, for example, if I got into this trade here on the 2nd or 3rd candle headed down, I could drop my stop loss right above the previous high in this trade, okay? So because I enter on the 15-minute time frame, I would do this on the 15-minute time frame, because on the higher time frames, your stop loss is going to be a lot wider. But if you go down on the 15-minute time frame, you can get a more accurate picture. Like I said, again, it's going to look a lot different. But this is where I do my entries. I just kind of want to give you guys an idea of how we actually trade a trend line and how it can help you, like when price actually breaks a support area or resistance area, and what you can do. So for example, let's say if I'm in a buy, for example, and suddenly price just, I don't know, anything can happen because nothing's guaranteed, but let's say that price reversed and it actually broke this trend line. That can be a signal for me to exit my trade. I'll cut my losses, about 5 pips, I'm out. I'll cut my losses. So that's what I mean by trend lines. You can have a very tight stop loss. You don't have to have like a 20, 30 pip stop loss. You can have a very tight stop loss. Why? Because we see that price is respecting. If we have a trend, we want to trade with the trend because the trend is our friend, right? So you always want to get in. If you're trading the trend, it's nice to get in at the bottom of the trend. So even after this 2nd point, after we know we have a valid trend line, you could get in on the 3rd candle going up, all right? It's going to come back down, test that trend line. But if it so happens to break, we are out. All right, so guys, that's how you trade a trend line. That's what a trend line is. That's how you draw a trend line, what I went over. If you guys have questions, drop them on this video. I hope that this was simple and plain for you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Stay blessed and keep up your trading. See you guys later.